right, we are going to be needing our composition notebook today and also our packet for pronouns. So open up to your next available page in your composition notebook, and we are going to title the top Compound Subject Pronouns. You can actually label the next page, so we're going to be working with 2 pages today in our composition notebook. The same, or not the same, but very similar to a title. Compound Object Pronouns. Okay, flip back to the Compound Subject Pronouns page, and you'll probably be able to figure out what we're talking about today. We've worked with this word before. Compound in grammar or in language arts means more than one. So we'll do 2 plus. And then subject is the subject of a sentence. Pronoun is the subject of the sentence is a pronoun instead of the actual subject. So we're going to have more than one pronouns acting as subjects of the sentence. So the next page in your packet is this little half sheet here that says compound subject pronouns. We're going to cut this guy out. I'm just going to show you my book here. We're going to cut this guy out a little bit more so that it fits on the page a little bit better. I am going to keep this title up at the top here, well, bottom for you right now in the video, but I'm going to keep that title, excuse me, and just cut around this table. But I'm going to keep that title up on top. I might just trim it a little. Like that. So this is what I'm going to be gluing onto that page. Now this is all we're going to be putting on this page. And the reason why we have 2 pages is just because both of them don't fit on one page together. Both of the charts we're working with today. So go ahead and glue this in wherever you want on the page. All the way around the back, or all the way on the back side, glue the whole thing down. Then the next page, very similar. We're going to cut around the table. I'm still going to include the title. So you can go ahead and rip this page out of your packet. I'm going to include this title, but I'm going to cut all the way around the outside of the table. Just like this. And then I'm going to glue the whole back side down onto the page. This is also all we're going to have on this page, so it doesn't matter where you put it on the page. You can put it toward the bottom, in the middle, toward the top, wherever you would like. Just like this. Okay, so now that we have the 2 pages set up, we are going to flip back to the compound subject page and take some notes in there. So we have compound subject, which we explained, 2 or more pronouns acting as the subject of the sentence. 2 or more simple subjects, one person in a sentence, joined by and or. So I'm going to circle these 2 words here. Joined by and or make up a compound subject, which is 2 or more people in a sentence. We are going to use object pronouns, and I know this is, subject pronouns. I'm looking at the wrong page here in my notes. Subject pronouns in compound subjects. So if you want to include yourself as part of the compound subject, you use the subject pronoun I. It is polite to mention yourself last if you have yourself and someone else. So remember yesterday, or in the last, in Friday's lesson, I said, you would never have she and he at the end of a sentence, and you will never have her and him at the beginning. You will always be, well, I guess you could be used for either. But if you refer back to this chart here, subject pronouns, I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. Okay? You are going to make sure that you have these at the beginning. And this is just saying you may have more than one pronoun acting as the subject of the sentence. So you may have he and she, you may have they, you may have you and I. She and he invited the parents. These are the compound subjects. Pam or I will speak at the assembly. So Pam or I. This is a compound subject. Even though Pam is not a pronoun, it is still a compound subject because one of them is a pronoun. We label it as a compound subject pronoun. Okay, so just make sure that you're using this chart here. Subject pronouns have to be used before the verb. And we're actually going to write before verb, even though we did write that above. Object pronouns after verb. Okay, then let's turn back to the compound subjects, or subject pronoun. So to check if the pronoun is correct, try using it alone as the subject. So this is kind of what we've done in grammar rules before, where we've had two people and we get rid of the other person in the word and to see if it worked. We're going to look at this sentence here and kind of split it up to see if we're using the right ones here. So we're going to use it alone, each one alone as its own pronoun, and pretend that there's just one. So we did, she invited the parents. Yeah, that works. That makes sense on its own. He invited the parents. Yeah, that makes sense on its own. Now, if it was her and him, you can try using those in the sentence. Her invited the parents. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. Him invited the parents. No, that doesn't work either. That doesn't make sense. So she and he would work if we split it up and use it alone. Okay, they are subject pronouns. They are supposed to be used before the verb, not after the verb. Okay, the next one. Pam will speak at the assembly. You can split them up. Yep, that makes sense. I will speak at the assembly. Yeah, that makes sense. Even though Pam is not necessarily a pronoun, we could replace I with me. Sometimes that I, me get tricky figuring out which one to use. If you were to use this and say, me will speak at the assembly, you're going, is that a 3-year-old talking? What is going on? That doesn't make any sense. Okay, I will speak at the assembly. Yes, that makes a little more sense. Okay, so pause here if you need to finish up the notes on this page. Otherwise, we are going to flip over to the compound object pronouns. Excuse me. All right, compound object pronouns. So an object pronoun is used in two ways. It receives the action of the verb, which we talked about before, is the direct object of verb. I'm going to write direct object in parentheses. Okay, so that's one way that an object pronoun can be used, as the direct object. Or it can be used after the words to, in, for, or at, which we talked about 2 pages before this here when we were talking about subject and object pronouns. So these are just kind of like a review. 2 ways an object pronoun can be used. It receives the action of the verb. You ask yourself, remember, who or what? Subject plus verb plus who or what. Okay? Then once you ask yourself who or what, and then you say the verb, the verb and then who or what, you're able to answer one of those 2 questions with this. Now the next section, we use object pronouns in compound objects. And again, it's polite to mention yourself last. You always put the other person first. So here we go. The principal congratulated Tom and me. Okay, notice we have 2 objects, 2 direct objects, but we only have one being used as a pronoun. So that's kind of why it's classified as this. Notice me, this is myself talking about whatever's going on in the sentence, is used second. Tom is first. Okay, so I'm going to circle that to show that that's the object pronoun. The class invited her, him, and me. Notice her and him is after your verb. Your verb is here, your verb is here. After your verb, it's receiving the action of the verb. Invited who? Invited her, him, and me. Congratulated who? Congratulated Tom and me. An award was given to Anna and me. Given, or was given is your verb, was given to who? Anna and me. So these are your object pronouns. They are receiving the action of the verb. I'm going to say number 1 because these are following this here. You'll notice that the word to is here. So that's actually following number 2's role up here. Okay? Now down at the bottom again, same method to double check and make sure you're using them correctly. You can separate them if they are alone, pretending that they are alone, and see if it makes sense. The principal congratulated me. Yeah, that makes sense. If this was I, the principal congratulated I. Normally we would say the principal congratulated Tom and I, but here's the thing, that wouldn't actually be correct in this one. If you separate them, get rid of the other person in the word and, you see which one makes more sense, me or I. In this case, it would be me. The principal congratulated Tom. Yep, that works. So we can keep Tom and me. Next one, the class invited her. Yep, that makes sense. The class invited him. Yeah, that also makes sense. The class invited me. Yeah, that makes sense too. Now, if we were confused on she, he, and I, you can look at those and see if those make sense also. So the class invited she. No, we probably wouldn't say that in our normal conversation. The class invited he. No, that doesn't make sense either. The class invited I. No, that doesn't make sense either. So in this case, it would be her, him, and I. So again, they're after the verb. So that's why we're using her, him, and me, which is in this chart here, versus she, he, and I. Okay? And then same thing with this one. An award was given to Anna. An award was given to me. Yeah, both of them make sense if you separate them alone. An award was given to I. No, that doesn't make sense. We wouldn't say that in our normal conversation. I is a subject pronoun, so you will never find I at the end of a sentence. Okay? I will be before your verb. Okay? So that's all the notes we have for this today. You have a Google form that you're going to fill out just with a few sentences, choosing the correct pronouns and where they go in the sentences based off if they are a subject pronoun or an object pronoun. So please pause this if you need to. Let me know if you have any questions.